Okay, here goes the first startup. We'll start it up the first time just using a leaf blower. Regular run-of-the-mill leaf blower with an adapter on it. Put some propane in it to get the fire going. So we plug that on the little propane jack there. There we go. The next thing we do is we blow some air through it to make sure it doesn't have fumes in it. Okay, you won't be able to hear me after this, so after we start the air, blow the fumes out, we'll turn on the exciter, the spark. Then we'll turn on a little propane until we hear it go fwoof, meaning that it's got a fire going. Then after that, we'll put 12 volts to the fuel pump. It's a 24 volt fuel pump. 12 volts will only make it go to about probably less than half power. So let's see. Here goes this. You won't be able to hear me then. Okay, turn it on the exciter. Here goes propane. Looks like the oil reservoir was overfilled a little bit. Not bad. You can tell the oil got lukewarm. Fuel consumption. It actually used quite a bit of the fuel. Oh yeah. This line here is just compressed air from a small compressor just to keep the turbine cool during startup. It doesn't really need it. I've done it many times without it. And we'll do an electric start here next in just a minute. Alright, this time we're going to do the electric start, the standard little high-speed motor that goes right in here. There it is. It engaged. Okay. We'll blow out the machine a little bit. We'll let the propane back up first. Okay, there's our propane again. Okay. And fuel control. The 12 volts is disconnected from the fuel pump right now. And we're going to turn on the exciter and the oil pump. Okay, oil pump and that run. Oh, we have a bad oil line now. We'll have to fix that next. Okay, there we go. We've replaced the oil line that was leaking right here. We've replaced it with a copper one. So now we're going to start it up with its little electric starter. So we'll make sure it's engaged. There it is. Okay, so we'll blow it out, turn on the exciter, and then add propane. Okay, won't be able to hear me. I just cut off the 12 volts to the fuel pump. The engine dies. We left the oil pump running to cool the bearings. And the turbine's actually still spinning. Get a little slow. It just stopped. And then you can just shut off the oil pump. And we could leave it on for a few minutes. That seems to be about that. Now we'll show you the bottom of the engine here in a second and a disassembly. Okay, as you can see right here is a propane tank. Standard propane torch you get over at Walmart or any automotive store. I just take the flame tip off and put a small hose on it. You can do that with any propane tank you probably have just laying around the house. And you just take the tank, lay it on its side, plug its little tube right on the bottom of the engine. Let me see if I can see that good. Right there. You just plug it on. It's the propane pilot. It's only used for a couple minutes while you're starting it up. Then you just turn it off. It's not needed thereafter. There, I took the little hose back off so you can see everything up here good. Right here is the electric fuel pump, and it just sucks fuel in on this the end of the hose right here. You just stick that in your fuel can and it'll suck fuel up, and it just pumps the fuel straight across here into the fuel injector, which is right there. This is the spark plug lead going over to the coil. And the only other thing that's really touchy when you're starting a jet engine, and even the biggest jet engines have them, and this is the fuel drain right here. It drains any excessive fuel that might have built up in the combustion chamber while you were trying to start it. If you let too much fuel build up in there, get a puddle inside the tank, you know, up into this area. If it gets a puddle of fuel in there, after it starts, it'll start to burn that, and it'll be uncontrollable throttle, and it'll scare the hell out of you. It has me before. But if during the startup, if you don't get it started right away, you can just take this plug out and let it drain. Sometimes I just put a little spigot on there and I let it drain while I'm starting it in case anything happened. This engine doesn't seem to have much of a problem with a buildup of fuel and starts fairly easy. So you shouldn't have any real problem there. And let's see, we'll go on to another step. Okay, the electric fuel pump has two wires at the end of its cord. They run on DC. The blue wire is positive, the brown wire is negative. Approximately 10 volts makes the engine idle, and anything above 10 up to about 30 or 35 makes it run at full power. 12 volts works good for a startup. 24 if you're just using two batteries. Step it to 24 and it'll go to about 3/4 power. It's no problem to use. You can use an HO train transformer. It puts out DC variable, or you can get a Radio Shack variable voltage power supply and just turn the power up and down and run the engine. Then over here we've got the oil pump and oil tank. There it is. Okay, and here we've got the high voltage transformers right here. You can plug the spark plug wire into either one of the high voltage plugs on it. Doesn't matter. You just take the wire, just stuff it on in there. That's enough. It's 5,000 volts. Makes the spark plug continuously have an AC arc, which ignites the propane. Once you hear it go foof, you hear a slight change and a little bit of heat coming out the tailpipe. That's time to start to turn on the main fuel. And let's see, we can see the oil pump over there and the oil tank. I just put, 5, 10 weight oil in there. Fill it to about the 3/4 mark. It pumps 20 to 40 pounds oil pressure into the engine. And right here on the turbo input, you've got a little jet here. I put compressed air into there to keep the turbine cool during startup. It's not necessary. I just use it for if I don't know what I'm doing particularly right then, so it keeps it a little cooler than normal. And if you put a higher pressure in, the 125 from a compressor isn't enough to start it, but you can start it from this jack right here, no sweat, if you use a CO2 bottle. And I've started this one on CO2 before, so if you have a CO2 bottle for a MIG welder or anything like that, you can just hook it on right here, and you don't need to use electric start or anything. You can just use the CO2. It'll spin it right up and start it. Probably one of the best ways. And let's see, the afterburner's held on with these 4 screws here. This is the plumbing to the jets. There's 40 thousandths diameter jets underneath each one of these, and you put liquid fuel or propane into right here, your choice. Right now this afterburner needs Teflon tape put on the fitting between this elbow and this T on each one of them. It has leaks around there. You can check it for leaks by just using water when you have this sitting out by itself. And the afterburner can be taken apart by just opening these latches here. You can pull the afterburner off the injector mechanism. This is the oil line, comes from the oil pump, goes to right here, it's screwed on, and then you have the return oil, which is this big tube here, goes into the side of the oil tank. And you have the place to put oil in right here, and it vents it. And for the afterburner's ignition, we have a spark plug right here on the afterburner, and it goes down to its own high voltage coil, another 5,000 volt transformer. You can use either one of the holes. And make sure you ground the transformers to the engine frame, this wire here, so you don't shock yourself. Then we have the electric starter motor with its hex drive, and you just take it, and you have the front of the engine right there, and you just take it and you just stick it into there and turn it until the hex engages that hex nut in there. There it is, engaged. And there's the on-off switch. You turn that on, you wait till it to spin up, then you turn on the propane. You hear it go foof, so you can tell it's got ignition. As soon as that ignites, then you can turn on your liquid fuel by putting 10 volts, 10 to 12 volts to the fuel pump on those 2 wires down there. And it starts to inject fuel. You hear a big change in the exhaust, and it starts to spin faster and faster. And instead of the starter wanting to torque one way, as the engine gets up to higher and higher speed, it's actually starting to run the starter itself. So that's when you know when it's time to pull it out and shut it off. Set that down. The engine then's running probably at about 30,000 RPM. Then you can increase the fuel pressure by increasing the voltage from your 10 volts up to 15 and 20 and 25 and 30, and then it's running at close to full speed. And as you can see down the old tailpipe, let's see, can you see in there? Let's see. Yeah, you can almost see in there. I can see the turbine a little bit. This camera isn't that sensitive. Yeah, let's see if we can squeeze around the other side here. Afterburner sitting on a piece of 2x6 here. And there's our 2 high voltage coils. Here's the oil pump. The oil pump runs, you just plug it in, runs on 120 volts. One of the first things you do is turn on the oil. Don't want to run it without the oil. And there's the fuel input. And this one's been run on propane. It's never been run on liquid fuel yet, but it's set up to run on liquid fuel. So you put liquid fuel in here, and it's supposed, the book says 40 psi, and that'll run the afterburner with 8 injectors that inject into the center. The exhaust stream blows the fuel then into this area. The big diameter change right here, they refer to that as a dump combustor, and it causes eddies right there. And the eddies slow the velocity down to where it can get ignition from the spark plug, which is only 1 5/8 inches from there. And let's see, what else did we tell you about it? And I think I've showed you everything you need to know to get it to go. And if worse gets to worse and you blow the whole thing up and burn up the turbine and all that kind of stuff, which has only ever happened to me once in years on another engine, and now all you need to do is get a new one of these. And I have extra ones of these. I sell them for 150 bucks. It has the turbine, it has the bearings, has the oil system in it. This is the turbine, and this is the compressor. If you accidentally get something in the front end, it wipes the compressor out. If during a startup you put too much fuel in when the engine's going too slow and you get fire out the back for more than probably 30 seconds or a minute or so, it starts to heat this up bright red and burns up the turbine. And it's not any big deal. Nothing seems to ever actually blow up. I mean, it just burns away the outer pieces here. No big deal. But I've had one years ago in a runaway state after I had fuel build up in the combustor without draining it. Actually, I had a plugged pitcock, and I thought it was fully drained, but it wasn't. And it started to race away and made noises and revved up higher than I'd ever heard. But I always had my running shoes on, and I ran for my life. And it stopped right away, and everything was fine. But it did burn up the turbine, and I had to put another one in. And this piece here can easily be swapped out. It comes right out of the center band here. You just remove the band here, and the two halves come apart, and that just pulls out, and it's one piece. It doesn't require any super mechanic. I don't know what types of experience you've already had. As you can tell, the cat likes this engine. And trying to think of what else to tell you about something. But I can just tell you that the startup procedure is, you stick the starter motor in the front, you turn on the oil, you turn on the igniter, you turn the starter on, it starts to spin. When the starter seems like it's spun up pretty good, you turn on the propane, you hear whoof, and you can hear a difference in the sound, knowing that you've got ignition. And then you turn on the fuel, and it starts to rev up higher and higher, and as soon as you feel the torque getting relieved on the starter motor, you just pull it out, and the engine's self-sustaining at that point. If you have any problems, just give me a call, and I can talk you through anything on it. I'm throwing in the two igniters, one for the afterburner, one for the engine. And the afterburner with liquid fuel should be able to blow flames out the back. I'd imagine the flames will come out at least a foot or so. Should be just a ass kicking. On propane, I had flames were coming out at least a foot. And propane's good to use because you don't need any fuel pump. The propane's under pressure, and you can just pump it right into there. If you start to need a fuel pump for the afterburner, if you're using liquid fuel, a Volkswagen electric fuel pump works just fine for 12 volts. Or the pump that's similar to the oil pump here that comes from Harbor Freight. I don't know if you have Harbor Freights back there or not, but that pump there runs on 120 volts. So the igniters run on 120 volts, and the oil pump runs on 120 volts, and the starter motor runs on 120 volts. Now, if you want to make the thing completely portable, for an igniter, if you want to get away from the 120 volt igniter, I take a turn flasher, standard automotive turn flasher, and a standard automotive ignition coil, and I just hook the flasher to the coil, and then it puts out a spark, just like it's a turn indicator, but now it's a sparker. It's as simple as that. You just hook a standard blinker relay, or flasher, whatever you want to call it, to just a standard ignition coil, and that's all you need for an ignition. They work just fine. Works on 12 volts. The fuel pump runs on from 10 to about 30 volts, no sweat. I usually use just 3 12-volt batteries. I go 12 volts to start it, 24 for about 3/4 power, and the third battery runs it up to full power. And oh yeah, the one thing we didn't mention to you, that's the type of fuel. Maybe I did earlier on in the video, but I don't remember. I don't have a script. But I take diesel fuel, and gasoline, 50-50. The main reason for the diesel, because it has a lubricating factor, and the oil pump, the fuel pump here, is a gear pump, and it needs a little bit of lube. To run straight gasoline might not be good on the pump. So a 50-50 mixture has been what I've used for years. And when I first started doing jet engines years ago, I would just go to Walmart and I was using 1 can of paint thinner to 1 can of Coleman fuel. 50-50 there again, and that was real good and smelled better too. That diesel stinks. But mixed with the gasoline it seems to be just fine. And let's see. And later on, if you ever get interested, I'm putting one of these on eBay. And this right here is a gearbox with a propeller hub on it. 20-to-1 gearbox with a motorcycle starter motor and a standard 4-bolt flange. And I hook it right onto this propeller over here. And let's see. And there's the box I found that some of it will fit in. I'll cut that box down a little bit and stick it in it, and I'll get another tube here to put the afterburner in. And today it's Monday morning. I plan on having this thing shipped in the next about 2 or 3 hours, so I'll be working on getting the damn thing in a box. That's the hardest part. And for most lines, use copper tubing and stuff. Other types things I've used have melted and stuff. This will run. It won't run red hot, but it runs plenty hot. And those little holes right over here, I use those for a temperature probe. But even if you don't have a temperature probe to put in there, I can see during startup little flames come out about an inch or so. I try to keep that at a minimum. That's my good spot to be looking when I'm starting up, to make sure I'm not introducing too much fuel too fast until it gets up to speed. And I hope you're happy with it. Hope you have fun with it. Hope you don't kill yourself or anybody else. And you don't want anything to fall into there. The suction's pretty great right here. And it should be vibration free. I always put my finger on there to make sure nothing's gone wrong, and it feels pretty much vibration free. And like I told you, the thinner the oil the better, easier starts. As soon as it's been started once, the oil's quite warm, then it's a lot thinner. It's easier to start the second time. A lot of times your first startup's better off with a leaf blower, but the electric start actually starts it faster most of the time. Yeah, like I said, if there's anything else I didn't get to on it or forgot to tell you, just give me a ring. I carry the cell phone with me all the time. Hope you have fun. Okay, I've unscrewed the 2 legs and the hanging bracket, the main engine mount, which you see right here, held on by 2 9/16 hex head bolts. They're 3/8/16 with a 9/16 hex. I'm going to remove the mount so it'll fit in the box better. You can see where it goes back on. Short side sticking out there, long side over here, and it has hard to point the camera, but you'll see where that goes back on those front. I'll tape the bolts. I'll put the bolts back in the hole, take the mount off.